Good morning, everyone. This is Ron with Sunday morning already. So go ahead and get started on yesterday. We had a very interesting discussion. We spoke from questions, and Evelyn's question sort of led today when she asked about Lucifer in the scripture and some of the descriptions that are given about Lucifer in comparison to what is said about Jesus. So we discussed those, and as we said, we were not done with those. We'll go back to that uh, perhaps today, or maybe not if we have questions. But very interesting things, and then Nick brought up some interesting points as well, talking about the state of the world right now, and who we are and where we are, and the strength of that. And so we talked about those two things in particular yesterday that I thought was quite enlightening and left us in a good place. So, any questions about any of that, or do you have anything else that has drawn your attention? Okay, no one. Um, okay, where then? Let's pass. I'm gonna go to Isaiah 14. We okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Um, I got real excited about the conversation yesterday because it opened some things up that I had not even thought about. Uh, we talked about Lucifer and the power that we've given that name, and we talk about whether we talk about Satan or the devil or whatever. We almost make it sound like we've been taught anyway that is some insurmountable force or energy that we cannot deal with. Uh, we even talked about us and the African versus the European, and we have also kind of made that energy a mountain that we cannot contain. So we wanted to look at this a little closer and just brought up look at some scripture that kind of helps bring all of this into the light. Okay, so Pastor, if you will, thank you. Pastor, are you talking?
Hey, Ron, you said Isaiah 14 and
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Charles. Isaiah chapter 14.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. When we look at Isaiah 14, or whether we're looking at the 28th chapter of Ezekiel, what we find is that neither one of these chapters are speaking of a spiritual being that has been created with the power to dominate humans. If you read it carefully, what you begin to see in in Isaiah 14 verse 4 says that that Isaiah is being instructed to speak to the king of Babylon. And then in Ezekiel 28, is talking about Ezekiel making lamentations about the king of Tyre. So in both instances, it is referencing the attitude of leaders or the attitude of kings or rulers over people. And so in Isaiah, when it talks about what is it? I was a sin. Is that it? Oh, I'm sorry. When it talks about the morning star, verse what 12 is it? how have you fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn? First of all, what has taken place is this particular mention of the fallen star in, I'm sorry, the morning star rather, in Isaiah has been coupled with the shining one in Ezekiel. The morning star and Lucifer comes from the same words. However, Hayel, from which Lucifer is taken, that's the root for Lucifer, it means the shining one. But that word also means day star or morning star. And when you look for that in, whether it be in the Aramaic or the Hebrew, Lucifer does not appear in either one of them. So what is actually talking about is the king of Babylon has raised himself up above everyone else and has put himself on a pedestal, so to speak. And the idea of falling from heaven is talking about the loss of a tremendous amount of influence. When it talks about the fall from heaven, it's talking about the authority, the leadership, the rulers losing power or losing their authority that they had over people. And when it talks about, I believe it's in what verse is that, where it talks about the ascension into the heavens. It's talking about raising yourself above other people. And when it speaks about the fallen angel, it's speaking about you not paying any attention to the counsel of the Creator or the counsel of the universe. Are you doing everything on your own? In a moment, I'm going to make every effort to pull this together. So when we look at this, and we look at it in the context of where we are today, what are we seeing? What we are seeing in this is the Creator saying to Isaiah as well as to Ezekiel, speak to those who have raised themselves up above everything that is. They have asserted them, they have raised themselves up above me, meaning that they think they have more power than I do. America is a classic example. I can do anything I want to do because I have the weapons and I have the money to do it. That is an assertion that America has more power than God. So this is not a literal thing where some spiritual beings were cast out in terms of angels out of the heavens. The idea of being cast out, of being cast out from heaven means that you lost your insight, you have no enlightenment because you have lost all sight of that, and you've begun to do things the way that you want to do them. So when we read this, we should not be reading it as though there is a spiritual entity called Lucifer. That's not the truth. There is no scripture anywhere in the Bible that speaks to or alludes to any being that has the authority over any human at all. It doesn't speak to any being as we have been taught about Lucifer, the devil, Satan. None of those things are spiritual beings at all. They are concepts. And the concept of Lucifer is talking about the shining one. The shining one is talking about the one who has placed himself above everyone. Satan speaks to adversary. And the devil speaks to confusion. So none of these things are speaking to a spiritual being. And I think Evelyn's question yesterday was who was Lucifer? Am I right, Evelyn? Are you on?
Yes, my question was why Christianity teaches you to shy away from Lucifer.
Okay. Now, the other thing is that when Jesus is called the morning star, this has nothing to do with Lucifer at all, because the word in the Hebrew Aramaic for Lucifer is different than the word for morning star, even though they have the same roots. They're totally different words. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how does this fit into where we are? Yesterday, I made reference to the fear that has been put in us in reference to Lucifer. If we are afraid, our fear of Lucifer translates into our fear of those who are destroying the world. Those who have all the power in the world, or seem to anyway, those who are doing anything they choose to do in the world. For example, when you hear Biden saying things like they have to stop the bombing, they have to, you're losing the support of the world. People are turning against you, and then, but at the same time, in the UN, he's voting against pushing Israel to stop bombing. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Why does he do that? Because he feels like no one has the power to stop him, just as Netanyahu feels. This is the king of Tyre. This is the king of Babylon. This is who we are talking about. Have all the power to do what they want to do. Now, if we are afraid of Lucifer, and Lucifer does not even exist, the shining one, the one who lifted himself up, that translates into us being afraid of the Caucasian. Because that's the one who has all the power. That's who has destroyed the world. That's who continues to destroy the world. That's who is continuing to exert authority over everyone on the face of the earth and ownership of everything in the earth. So there's no differentiation between that. So if the Creator was telling us today to speak to the President of the United States or the Prime Minister of Israel, or even the President of Russia, the Premier, or whatever it is, any potentate, the Creator would be saying, tell them that you have placed yourself above me and all the enlightenment that I have for humanity. You have placed yourself and you have put yourself in a place of authority that you believe is greater than my authority. Tell them that they have fallen from the heavens, meaning that they have no enlightenment at all. And tell them that what they feel like is an ascension to power is actually a fall to the ground. In other words, they're falling beneath the feet of everyone because they are blind and have not a clue as to who they are in relationship to me. Does that make sense? Before I go on? Questions, comments?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't. When we're saying that, then what are we saying? We're saying to the African, we're saying to the Chinese, we're saying to any person of color, you have no reason to be afraid of what's happening or the potentates who are in authority. The only reason they have power over you is because of your fear of them. Anything that you fear overtakes you. And when you face your fears, it is then that these potentates fall from their thrones. I, the Creator, will not cast them from their thrones. It is your courage. It is that cast them from their thrones. It is when you are no longer afraid of them. It is the energy and power of righteousness that not only exposes them, but it weakens them at every point, and they begin to be seen for what they are, toothless tigers. They begin to see for what they really are. They are powerless. And if you really think about it, and you believe with all your being that spirituality is stronger than anything else, then when you look at it that way, and you look at the weapons that these potentates have, and the scripture clearly tells us that no weapon that's formed against us. This is not a cliche for a charismatic church. This is the reality for spiritual people. What it's saying is, do not be afraid of a nuclear bomb. Do not be afraid of somebody lynching you. Do not be afraid of any of those things, because you know who you are. Is it not written that I, the Creator, say that you are gods, that you are Elohim? And because you are Elohim, you do not have anything to fear. Isaiah, make sure that you say this to the king of Babylon. Ezekiel, write this lamentation to the king of Tyre. Now, keep in mind, neither Isaiah nor Ezekiel was preaching or writing to the people. These lamentations were directly towards the leadership, directly for those who were in power, those who felt like they could do anything they wanted to do. Therefore, it has no application to us, because we are not the potentates who rule the world. Neither are we the potentates who feel like we own everything in the world. As a matter of fact, the leadership around the world, Caucasians, Europeans in particular, feels like not only do they own the resources in the earth, they feel like they own everybody on the earth, especially the African. And that is the reason that we are in a continuous state of servitude. One reason is because that is the mindset of the European. The other reason is because of our fear of the European. And when we understand what that is really saying, then we will also understand, if you have fear, you cannot truly believe that you're Elohim. When you know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you're Elohim, there are no fears for you. None whatsoever. Questions, comments? And I hope this is clear. If not, please raise the questions and I'll do my best. And there are others on this line who probably see it more clearer than I do. And I appreciate your input, please. Thank you.
I have a question. The weaken your resolve to see men as opposed to energy. For example, you mentioned Biden or whether or not Trump or whoever it may be, to make that the focus would not be accurate. I suppose that the truth of the matter is that this energy has been in the earth for thousands of years. So, not to focus, maintain the focus on what you need to maintain the focus on. Explain that a little bit, please.
Okay. When I said Biden, when I said Netanyahu or Putin, whomever, whatever name I use, I'm only using those names because you're familiar with earthly things, and I have to use earthly terms in order to get you to see spiritual reality. So I'm not talking about individual men, because if I were talking about individual men, then we would not be going through this, because the doctrine of discovery has been in the earth ever since the Catholics put it in the earth. And the results, what we are seeing now is the result of the doctrine of discovery. You can Google it because I don't want to get into the intricate details of that today. And therefore, I'm talking about the energy that's put into the earth, the energy that Biden is ruled by, the energy that Netanyahu is ruled by. That's what I'm talking about. And I use those names simply because it helps give you a clearer picture of what I'm trying to say in terms of the spiritual essence of who we are in relationship to the essence of who those are who think that they rule the earth, meaning that they too are a source of energy, but that source of energy that has lost its way and does not have any clue as to who it is. The energy that we are focusing on is the energy that we were created with, and that was to be the image and likeness of Elohim. The question that I would raise if I were you would be, so where did this other energy come from? That the spiritual energy that you're talking about that is so chaotic. In order for us to truly be who we were created to be, we have to do what Elohim did when we were created. What did Elohim do? Elohim created us in its image and likeness. And then we are in this earth. In order for us to be image and likeness, we have to create as well. So we have to take this energy of chaos and we have to repurpose it and bring it into a state of being where it is under the direction of righteous energy. And it doesn't mean that these people are killed physically at all. What it does mean is when this energy of chaos is repurposed, that means that the mindset begins to change. And when the mindset begins to change, that also means that the redemption of the human is taking place. And when the human is redeemed, so is the earth. And the purchase, redemption means to purchase something that has been in bondage. The way we purchase it is by the sacrifice that we made. So what is that sacrifice? Sacrifice does not mean that you've given up something. Sacrifice means that you walk away from something in order to see who you really are. Sacrifice speaks to the receiving of something. We receive an awareness of who we are because we have sacrificed the chaotic life that we not only live, but we promote it as well. If you are materialistic, you are chaos. If you are selfish in any way whatsoever, you're chaotic. If you only want to see things work well for you and your family, you are a part of the chaos. So order speaks to the whole concept of humanity being not managed but taken care of. That everything, the sustenance of humanity is always there, and poverty does not exist. Now, we will be told that the scripture said, the poor you will have with you always. That is true, but it's not talking about the poor in terms of poverty. It's talking about those who are poor in spirit, meaning that those who are unaware of who they are. Therefore, our journey of awareness does not end. It is a continuous thing. And that is the reason we don't have a destination, we have a destiny. That is the difference between those. Does that make sense? Ron?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I have a question again, though, and this is for everyone else. The hope today was to bring clarity to this thing called Satan or Lucifer or the devil, and to take that sting away from us. Is that being done? Is that clear? Because I know we are, it is a religious thing that has been with us for quite some time. Is there anyone who may have other questions about it, or does this make sense to you?
Ron, may I say something?
I have a,
Of course.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's not so much taking this thing away.
Okay.
It's taking the fear away.
Okay.
The one thing that we don't want to admit is that we are afraid of the power of Europeans. And that fear is expressed in many different ways. Fear doesn't mean you're in a corner hiding. Fear also means that you whisper when you're talking about the truth in the grocery store because you don't want white people to hear what you're saying when you know you're right. Fear is also when you're brazen to the point where you want to antagonize somebody. You're doing it because you're afraid of them. Courage is when you speak righteousness without regard to the consequences. And when you do not use truth for the purpose of antagonizing people, you use truth for the purpose of bringing people to a state of awareness. So it's fear. I rather use the term fear rather than sting, because I know the scripture about taking the sting out of death. It's the fear. I would rather use that word because that's the reality of what we are dealing with. We've been afraid of Europeans' power for quite some time. I'm done. Evelyn?
Okay.
Oh, wait. Well, no, let me just ask. So it says that Lucifer is light bringer and morning star.
No, ma'am.
And Jesus is
Evelyn?
not.
No, ma'am. That has been.
Okay, I'm just.
Let me finish. That has been the Christian interpretation of that. The word
Of
for
what?
Lucifer means, the word for Lucifer is the shining one. It is not morning star. They have the same root, but they are totally different. The word shining one or the word Lucifer does not appear in Ezekiel or Isaiah or any place in scripture at all. The translators did that.
Okay.
So
and also,
when you
I'm
talk,
wondering if that word "shining one" is the thing that distracts us.
Yes.
Whatever that thing is that distracts us, it's a false enlightenment in a sense. The shining one, it's the gold, it's the silvery, it's the bright thing that captures our attention and distracts us away from the enlightenment that we are and that we need to see in others. So it's a perpetrator in a sense to me.
It is a perpetrator. But what happened is Lucifer, the morning star, and what Jesus is referenced as the morning star. And that's chaotic. Because those Jesus and Lucifer, Lucifer has been described in Christianity, cannot be the same. They're two totally different concepts. They're antithetical to each other. Does that make sense, Evelyn?
Yes, it does.
See, this is the thing. We are at a place now in our journey where it is imperative that we are courageous. And courage doesn't mean that you beat somebody up. Courage means that you stand in the face of adversity without blinking. You persevere in the face of adversity. That's courage. The confusion is that the word Lucifer and the word morning star are the same. That's confusion. That is not true. The shining thing is what Barbara was talking about. It is the thing that distracts us, the shiny object that gets our attention. Right now, the shiny object, the shining one who gets our attention is the power of the Europeans in the earth. Those are the distractions. What can happen to us if we fail to follow the orders that we have been given? What happens to us if we say that Netanyahu is 100% wrong and that they have no business in Palestine claiming it as being Israel? The distraction would be you're anti-Semitic, when the truth of the matter has nothing to do with being anti-Semitic, which most don't know what it means anyway, and neither do I want to get into that this morning either, because it would carry us in a different direction. I want to focus on Lucifer. I want to focus on Jesus as the morning star. I want to focus on those because when it talks about Jesus being the morning star, what is the morning star? The first light. Coming out of your darkness, you come into the morning. And the star is your source of enlightenment. It brings enlightenment, to the wisdom that you have walked past. When you are in darkness, wisdom is always there. You can walk past it or you can embrace it. And when you embrace it, you get understanding. So when we talk about the shining one, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. We are not talking about a morning star. We are talking about a distraction. And Christianity itself is a distraction. Because if we look at the tenements of Christianity, there are so many contradictions in it, it's not even funny. However, when we look at the reality of what's in the scriptures, that's totally different. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm glad we have the platform to talk about this, because it can be confusing. And again, I'm grateful we have the platform where we can bring this so we can have clarity on it, a better understanding. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It is very imperative that we understand this. I do not believe that any of the questions that we are dealing with are haphazard. Look at the depth of the question that Charles brought about walking on water. Look at the depth of the question that Evelyn brought about who is Lucifer. You see where I'm coming from? These things are here for a reason, or these questions rather, are here for a reason. And they are to bring clarity as we travel this journey, because we are in a place that we definitely do not quite understand yet. I'm
So,
done.
Rev, so that means that they twisted the truth of what God was trying to tell us. So the Caucasian twisted all the truth to make it feel like everything they say was important. You need to listen to what we're saying, and everything that we knew and understood who the creator was, they just twisted and made us scared to stay to stay with who we supposed to stay with. You understand what I'm trying to put out there?
Yeah, we made us afraid to untwist it. See, they exchanged the truth for a lie. And we have been indoctrinated into embracing the lie. Most people, especially people of color, are very uncomfortable speaking the truth in the midst of white folks who call themselves Christians. I'll give you an example. I was teaching in a church, and there were both Africans and Europeans there. And the Europeans who were there were basically pastors. And one of them said that God does not hear the prayer of sinners. And I said, God did not say that. And they argued me down that, yes, he did. And I said, no, he didn't. God did not say that. The Sadducees said that. And he got very indignant to the point where he approached me like I'm supposed to shy away from him. I mean, literally, physically approached me, and he larger than joke. And when I did not back down from him, he froze. Now, there were two things that happened there. One, if I had backed away from the truth, then I would have been submitting to a lie. Two, if he felt like he could frighten me physically, then he would have been able to overcome what I was teaching. While that was going on, another European preacher who was there went to that scripture and read it. And it says, and the Sadducees said, God does not hear the prayers of a sinner. And don't you know, that preacher who said that God said it would not accept that coming from the scripture. And the results of that was this. The only reason that you don't want to accept the truth, even though you see it in the scriptures, is because it's coming from the mouth of a black man. And that pretty much ended the session. That's what I'm talking about. You have to be willing to tell the truth, regardless of the company that you're in. And my pet phrase for it is this: do you really want the answer? Because most people don't want to answer. They want to hear what they've been told rather than to hear the truth of what they need to know. Can you see the difference in that? Fear.
Yes, sir.
Fear cannot be our partner. There is, when you know that you're Elohim, what is there to fear? I am fortunate, as I'm sure most of you are as well, but I'm fortunate to have been reared in a household where one of the major things that we were taught was fear no man, especially white folks. Because if they put fear in you, they control you. That's how I was raised. And now I see the spiritual essence of that, even though I do not believe the ones who taught me that was doing it from a spiritual perspective knowingly. But that's what it means. Have no fear. Fear will always make you lie. If you fear for your life, you will lie to save it. And when I say lie, I'm not talking about telling someone if someone comes to my door and they have a rope or a gun searching for Tamara, and I say she's not here. That's not a lie if she's here. A lie is when you take the truth or spirituality and twist it. Is when you take the scriptures and exchange the truth of the scripture for the lie of religion. Can you see that?
Yes, Pastor. I see it.
Thank you. Anyone else, questions or comments? The only way that we're going to bring order is through creation. Created in our image and likeness. And that is why it is extremely imperative that we make sure that under no circumstances do we allow anyone to frighten us or to keep us from telling what we know the truth to be. Looking at the scriptures, seeing what they mean, and speaking about that. There is no reason for us to shy away from that. And there's no reason for us to shy away from the reality that we must create in our image and likeness. If the African was the first in the earth and the African the most spiritual people on the earth, when you realize as an African who you are in terms of being Elohim, then you have an obligation to bring other mindsets to your mindset, meaning created in your image and likeness. And I'm not talking about all this material stuff at all. I'm talking about having an understanding of who you are and what it means. This is not about hating the people because of the color of their skin. This is not talking about getting even with anyone. None of that. None of that is included in this. This is talking about loving everyone, and you love them to such a depth that you want them to see who they are. You're not angry with them because of what they did. You're angry with them because they don't want to see who they are. You're righteously angry with them because of that. You're not being courageous because you want to outsmart someone or to defeat someone. You're being courageous because you know it takes courage to speak to people who don't know who they are. It takes courage for you to speak the truth in such a manner that it will bring them to a desire, a place of desiring to know more about themselves. And that's not an easy thing. And I can see the shades of it taking place now. And what I mean by that is this. I see in one place, I see all of the people, and I'm calling names now, but I'm talking about energy. I see all of the people like the Bidens and Putin and Netanyahu and Trump, that crowd. I see all of these people trying to hold on to the chaotic energy and trying to maintain, as Barbara said, this little shining object for distraction. And I see beside them, I see a group of people who are vacillating. They don't know whether they want to tell the truth about what Israel is doing, or are they going to maintain the status quo because they don't want to lose their position, their influence, or their authority. Then next to them is a group of people who are much younger, and they were saying it doesn't matter. What they were saying is the truth is the truth regardless of who it hurts. So I see a transformation taking place. So the unraveling of these lies that's been twisted with the truth is taking place as we speak. And the way it's being seen, or being shown rather, is that younger people are spiritual, but they're not religious. And they're staying away from the church. And those who have been there are walking away from it. And the reason they're walking away is because they are not getting answers. And they do not see the church doing what it says it's supposed to be doing. What they are seeing is speaking one thing and doing another. What they are seeing is being at church at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning and leaving at 12, lynching somebody at 2, and being back in church at 7 o'clock in the evening. As opposed to seeing loving kindness, the virtues of respect, the virtues of righteousness. Instead of seeing all of those things, they are seeing just the opposite. And they are saying, we don't want any parts of this. Because church is not, religion is a business, spirituality is not. Any questions or comments?
The funny thing about that is you're talking about fear. Just watching the news and you see some of the young people from across campuses across America, and as they talk about this thing, they have no fear, even though you see a lot of the old money for not knowing old companies and old money sort of threatening them, talk about jobs, talking about their future, but they stand up. They stand up because they not, I guess, have a reason that we have that fear has been woven into them, and they stand up for what is right because they don't know any better, and they're demanding this. How that looks, in the world just stands out because it's something different. It's so, yeah, I see what you're saying, and just compare that to where we are, because we have overcome a lot and continue to overcome a lot. And to look at that and look at the youth of the day, just to put those two energies together, to me is very powerful.
Well, in the 60s, the young Africans were dealing with a desire for political equality. The young European children were dealing with the war in Vietnam. Both of us were dealing with secular things. We wanted secular change. And secular change is not going to come from the people who created the secular society. What we are seeing now is a group of young people who are spiritual. And they are not afraid to speak the truth about what they see. They talk more about being in rhythm with the universe than we ever spoke about. And that rhythm with the universe is guiding them toward a spiritual change that they may not even recognize as being spiritual. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So the energy of the secular change from the 60s, actually 50s and 60s, the energy from those desires, that energy now is transformed into a spiritual energy, because we understand that change does not come politically. We understand that power does not come from the barrel of a gun, as Mao Zedong said. Power does not come from any place, because the power is already where it's supposed to be. And the power in the earth is in the awareness of who you are. The power in the earth has always been here. But we have pushed the power down. We have diminished who we are in order to get along, in order to to protect our children, when in essence we were not really protecting them, and we did not know it. Now we see much clearer than we've ever seen before. And I do believe that everything happened the way it did for such a time as this. And everything continues to happen the way that it's happening for such a time as this. And the time that I am speaking of is a time for redemption of the earth, redemption of humanity, a transformation for everything that's within the realm of this earth. And I'm not just talking about people's hearts. I'm talking also about the plant life. I'm talking about the cleaning of the waters. I'm talking about the oceans, the seas. I'm talking about all of these things being brought into a place of unicity with not only the universe, but with humanity as well. I'm done.
Hi, this is Audrey. I also see it as young people now seeing all the lies that are sort of woven into what's supposed to be the truth. And an example of that would be where, we have a constitutional right to freedom of speech, but people who are speaking out and using their power of the freedom of speech, then they're being denied, having jobs rescinded.
Oh, we can't hear you, Audrey.
I'm done.
Oh, we didn't hear the last part of what you were saying.
I said they're starting to see all the lies that are woven into what's supposed to be the truth. And then an example would be freedom of speech, where people who are speaking out are then having jobs rescinded, so that they're seeing these big corporate places really aren't telling the truth about that particular thing. So I guess they're feeling like they have nothing to lose now when the truth, the quote unquote truth, is not the truth. Anyway, I'm done.
Thank you. I guess it's unavoidable, because these young people are talking about what they're being castigated from. The reason the jobs are being rescinded is because what they are saying about the genocide that's taking place in Palestine. That's the reason they are speaking out. That's the reason these jobs are being rescinded. And the reason that they're using is that you are anti-Semitic because you're speaking the truth, or because you're saying what you believe in the face of the right to free speech. But and now, this is what I think is unavoidable. I think it's unavoidable for me to say some things that I have refrained from saying because I did not feel like it was the time to say it. I mentioned it, but to go into it, I have not. First of all, there is no such thing as being anti-Semitic. Semites has nothing to do with religion or spirituality at all. The word Semite comes from semi, a part of. If you do the etymology of the word, you will find that a Semite is a mixed race person. The original meaning of the word Semite is a mixed race person. And mixed race people is not a religion, they are humans. And I do not like the term mixed race, but I don't know any other way how to explain what that word means. That word came into the vernacular when Europeans invaded Northern Asia and intermarried with them, the Asians, and then invaded Northern Africa. That's when the word Semite came into our vernacular, our language, and the Eastern Europeans took that and made it something that it was not, just like they took the word Judah and made it Jew when it has nothing to do with that word at all. There is no correlation between those words at all. And that in itself speaks to the whole concept of ascending above the stars, placing yourself on the throne above the Creator. You can make anybody believe what you want them to believe, even though it is not the truth. People right now, people are afraid to say anything contrary to a Jew. Netanyahu is a killer. And people are afraid to say that because they're afraid of being anti-Semitic. And at some point, we have to understand that anti-Semitism is not a real thing at all, just like race is not a real thing. It is a made-up thing. And we have to look at it for what it is. It has been a bargaining chip. It has been a wedge that has won tremendous amount of authority for those who use it. If you go down the list, Bertrand Russell, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, Roy Wilkins, you go down the list of leaders in the African community, every single one of them was accused of being anti-Semitic until they stood publicly and apologized to Jews for something that Jews said they said was anti-Semitic. In other words, in order for you to lead Africans, you have to be apologetic to the Jews first. That's a historical fact. That is not hyperbole at all. And it's time for us to stand in the face of the adversity no matter who is in charge. And regardless of what the consequences are, it doesn't matter. At age 19, now 20, at age 20, I was asked to write the international policy on Israel for the delegation from Washington, D.C. that was represented at the National Black Convention in Gary, Indiana. And I wrote it. And the leader of the delegation was Doug Moore. And Doug was the presenter of everything, of the policies that we had written. And when we got back to D.C., his store had a sign on it that IRS has shut his store down, investigated him for tax evasion that lasted over a year and found nothing. That was his punishment because of the policy that was written, that he presented on Israel. That's what's happening in the universities right now. Terminate the president because they allow kids to have free speech. You can say anything you want about an African, but you can't say anything about the Jew, even though it's right. You can say anything you want about us. And I said it a couple of weeks ago. It took one event, 1 year, for Asians to be attacked because of COVID. 1 year. And they passed a bill, the anti-hate bill for Asians. For 400 years, there has never been a bill passed for anti-hate for us. Anti-lynching bills have been, there are over 200 anti-lynching bills before Congress right now, and none of them have been passed. So what does that tell you? You can do a whole broadcast. You can change this. You can go to the whole world and tell the whole world that they are wrong for saying that Netanyahu was wrong, and you're calling them anti-Semitic. You're saying that they hate Jews. That is not the truth. But yet, you see the police lynching us, and we have a history of being lynched throughout the years, and no one wants to pass anti-lynching bill. These are the things that we need to address. But we have been afraid to address them because we have been afraid of what the consequences might be. And the church is definitely wasn't going to address them because the church has been convinced that Jesus was a Jew when there's no such thing as a Jew. Jesus was a Palestinian. The church is not going to address that because the church does not control what it says. The church is controlled by the same principles that controlled us during the period of slavery and that forced us to become, quote unquote, Christians. And if you read anything that has been written about Christianity, you will find that Christianity's foundation was for the purpose of enriching the Catholic Church and controlling people of color. That's the foundation of Christianity. And I challenge anyone, do your own research and see what the foundation is. And you will find that foundation in this thing called the doctrine of discovery. Just Google it and you will see it. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Red, one question. When you said that you have to apologize to the Jew, I mean, elaborate a little bit on that so I can understand why they have to apologize.
One of the things that Martin Luther King did was boycott the stores in New York, primarily New York. And the reason he was boycotting the stores in New York is because they were taking Black folk money, but they wouldn't hire them. They were not clerks. They could be janitors. They could clean the bathroom. They could sweep the floors. They could empty the trash cans, but they could not be clerks. They could not be salespersons. So when Martin Luther King began to rail against that, he was accused of being anti-Semitic because the stores were owned by Jews. And when he apologized for that, when he said that this was not about boycotting Jews, it's about boycotting stores. Primarily is what you're saying. My word is not his, but the same principles. And when he made that apology, he was accepted by the Jews, and that was fine after that. That's what I'm talking about. And if you read, well, that's a whole new lesson. But if you start looking at where Macy's came from, Bloomingdale's, all the rest of, what are the rest of these stores? The rest of these exclusive stores in New York and Hollywood, all these stores on Rodeo Drive, find out who the history of those stores and see where they came from. See the art, see where the money came from that established those stores. This is old money. And what is old money? Come on, y'all. You know what old money is.
Slavery.
Oh, that's it. Old money, slave money.
Is that the same as generational wealth? Generational wealth?
Generation of greed.
Okay, that.
This whole concept of generational wealth is taken totally out of context. Generational wealth from the economics from capitalism means that you make enough money to make sure that your kids and your family is taken care of for the rest of their life, and the hell with anybody else's family. That's generational wealth based upon the capitalist system. Generational wealth based upon spirituality is talking about every generation, regardless of whose womb it comes from, is seen after or have the sustenance to live and don't have to live in poverty. That's the spiritual understanding of this thing that's called generational wealth. Mansa Musa is one of those people who perpetuated spiritual generational wealth. The African concept of generational wealth is spreading the wealth so everyone can benefit from it. But capitalist generational wealth is not that way. It is right now the reason that people are paying so much money for rent, and the reason money is so expensive to borrow is because of greed. It's because there are a group of people who are called, what is it? It's a private equity firm. And they buy up everything and raise the prices on them. They buy up tracts of houses and apartment buildings and raise the prices on them. That's how they are developing generational wealth for their families on the backs of everyone else. And I do not want to get into the weeds on the economics of it, but that's the overview of what's happening when you say generational wealth. And I hope that you are grasping what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
I understand it now, Red.
Thank you.
I am not sure if Nick is on today, but I like to tie in, if someone can, some of the points he made yesterday when he talked about the state of the world and where we are, and tie it to what you have said today, Pastor, when you explained what you did to us about Lucifer, and talked about our fears, and can you tie that in, or if Nick's on, or someone else that remembers some of the statements he made, pull all this together, please? Is it
I would
possible?
rather somebody to mention some of the things that he said, because I don't think I can do justice to what he said without, hearing some of the points that he made, because he did make some good points, and I don't see him on. So I don't think he's on this morning. So if anyone remembers some of the points he made, please remind us. Okay.
Hello, everyone. It's Sheldon.
Go ahead,
One point that he made was, right before we got off, was the point of, and it was used as an example of the upcoming election, to not be fearful in a sense of fight that which we don't want, but to focus on and support what it is that we do want. And I was thinking about in terms of how that relates to one of the broader concepts we've been talking about is fear, and with Lucifer, there being fear as well. And Pastor Richard mentioned about fear of Europeans, etc. And we talk about fighting that. What we fight, anyone fight, is that which we see as a threat. And we talk about things from a spiritual standpoint. We talk about being Elohim. We talk about not being fearful. When we are in more of a fighting sense, or fighting those things that we do not like, as I said, we view those things as a threat. But not only do we view those things as a threat, we then lower, in a sense, the power or the self-acknowledgement of the Elohim we are, in a sense. because we are undermining ourselves. And so we have then, in a sense, given up. We are then, in a sense, to some extent, um, hopeless, or we see as if things can possibly not go well and be extremely uh, detrimental. Um, the other thing that it does is that if you want to look at it from a lower vibration standpoint, we lower ourselves to that frequency in order to oppose that thing that we do not like. Um, Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum for this conversation, in terms of operating in fear and fighting that which we are opposing, feel threatened by, it is to operate and building and focusing on that particular thing, the thing that we do want, or that we do enjoy, or that we do enjoy, that of which we actually come together on a weekly basis, that where we inspired to do, inspired to be, where we're motivated, more so feel one. Um, in terms of our aspirations. When you focus on that, we are then walking more in line with what we would have thought that Jesus did while here on the earth. It wasn't a situation where something is impossible. It's more so, this is what we're doing, this is what we're seeing through, this is what we not only envision, but we are experiencing in real time in the earth and in our lives, and we expect others to do the same. We talk about being distracted by that shiny thing, and please, if anyone has any questions, ask so I can try to tie this together, because I'm seeing it, but I can use some help in actually saying it. But when we talk about, Pastor Richard said something about having love for those, and we're just using as an example, Netanyahu, who we do not support and like what they do, but at the same time, we're not fearful of them. We want the best. We want them to participate in the same things that we aspire to participate. We don't want to oppose them. Again, they are not a threat. In a sense, they're just more so lost. If you're able to still love that which you do not agree with at all, that in itself gives the opportunity for that particular person to do better. That also gives the opportunity for that person to feel love. That also gives that person or thing the opportunity not to feel threatened as well, but to also be embraced. Because, I mean, let's be frank and honest. The idea of that European attitude is coming from a place of fear. It is coming from a place of feeling like it will not have enough. It is coming from a place of greed, because it needs all of the stuff to try to make itself feel whole, or self to feel more. There is a lack, or perception of lack, that is actually driving that spirit to begin with. So just wanted to speak about fear, and essentially putting our energy and power and focus to those things that we want, and not those things just walking around that we seem to oppose and not like, because we get caught up in those things and we see those things as being something that can overtake us, and then we actually have to fight, and it lowers ourselves in a sense, or our perception of ourselves, I would say, in a sense, because we're not actually lowering ourselves, it's just a perception of ourselves. I feel like I was rambling, but yeah.
No, you weren't. What popped in my mind when you were talking, Sheldon, was that one of the things that was stated, and Nick elaborated on it, was we are not against anything. We are for something, because being against carry negative connotations is one of the things that was said. We are for righteousness. We are for loving kindness. We are for the harmony of humanity. We are not against Netanyahu, or we're not against racism. We're not against we're not fighting against any energy of confusion. We are for the repurposing of that energy. And the way we do that is through loving kindness. So keep in mind, above everything, we are not against, we are for righteousness. Questions or comments? And if you say some things like that came up, it refreshes my memory. But again, my mind runs at 10,000 miles a minute. So there are things that I don't necessarily remember, but when questions come, I do remember.
So, Ray, like the Bible said, we are not fighting against flesh and blood. We're fighting against principalities. So we have to understand more than what we see in front of us and what they're seeing in front of us. We have to look behind the scene to understand what's going on in the principality, right?
Yes. See, if we are against something, we'll fight in surface things. The problem is not what's happening in the problem is not what's happening in Palestine. The problem is the energy that promotes it or that causes it to happen. Can you see what I'm saying? The real issue, you can stop bombing and still have the same mindset, and nothing has changed. So our objective is to change mindsets through love and kindness. That's all.
Yeah, I can give a quick example of that. This attitude that has definitely been highlighted or has become very apparent recently, you know, in terms of that region and in terms of many people in the United States, very powerful people in the United States and how they feel. That was always there, just below the surface, even if those individuals who have made these statements and come out with these certain stances have been aware of it or not. That has always existed. To give another analogy to what Pastor Richard is talking about right now, throughout, you know, I would say our time were enslaved people here in the Americas, and for example, just dealing with racism and fighting for, you know, civil rights and things like that. Just having civil rights, even though a lot of people may not realize this, has never actually been the ultimate goal. It's not that anyone wants rights or anyone for that matter wants to be loved because someone is made to treat them well or made to love them. It is the attitude that everyone wants that particular thing to exist by itself freely because the other wants to do it, but not because there's any type of threat or being any type of force or anything like that where they're being made. So that's what we're talking about as an example for spirituality and the attitude behind things. I'm finished.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank both of you.
Again, I want to reiterate.
Okay.
We are not against people. We are for the transformation of humanity. We are for humanity becoming aware of its divinity. Being able to see above everything else that race is a made-up thing. I do believe that when people come to an understanding that race is not real. That humans are humans. That will take, as Ron said earlier, the sting out of everything else. Everything that's done on this earth is based on race. And to take the power out of race and help others see that racism is a made-up thing, that carries us a long ways on this journey of bringing peace to the earth. That is imperative for us to embrace. The race is just as phony as religion is, and it's just as dangerous. In this country, we don't have, in this country, when Roosevelt did Social Security, and I think I mentioned this before, Social Security was supposed to be 100% when you go to the doctor. They made it 85% because they felt like Black folk could not afford to pay the 15%. And that's why Social Security is, you have a co-payment with it. Everything that has been done in this country has been done in such a way that it would leave the African out of it and leave him in a place of pain and suffering. And we cannot function based upon anger towards people who wants us to suffer, because they don't know any better. They really don't know any better. They really think that they are superior. Now, I'm not talking about the ones who are in power. They know what's happening. And that is the reason the ones in power don't want Africans to know their history. But it is the man who fought in the Civil War and then owned in the slaves. But he fought to preserve slavery, and he was poorer than the slave. These are the ones who has to be brought to a sense of knowledge of self. They do not care about being used as long as they can keep people of color in their place. We cannot function that way. Everything we do has to be based on loving kindness. Everything. We cannot recoil from the truth simply because we are upset about something. It is awful to see people gunned down by the policeman or beaten half to death. It's awful, but we cannot make decisions based on getting even with someone or what they call justice because someone did that. The only justice for those kinds of things is to change the heart of the perpetrators. And when you, and the reason I say that's the only justice is because when you change the hearts of the perpetrator, then it doesn't happen anymore. But when your only recourse is to put them on suspension, terminate them, incarcerate them, that doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. It simply perpetuates a system of hate, a system of greed. It is imperative that we understand this. And I would say this, and I'm hoping that you will as well, over and over again, as many times as it takes. This journey that we are on, it has nothing to do with getting even with someone, has nothing to do with hatred, has nothing to do with turning things upside down. Everything we do is about harmony with humanity and the universe.
Yeah.
That's what we are about. I love Netanyahu as much as I love you. And the things I say and do is out of love for him and those who think like him, so that energy can be repurposed. Love covers a multitude of entanglements. When you love, you can disentangle people from those things that has them entangled. On a smaller scale, when you have friction between you and someone you love, that's an entanglement. And when you express that love and you express that gratitude for their being, and you respect them and you embrace them, and you say to them, I'm sorry, or you say to them, I never meant to hurt you, you say things that you say to them, I love you, then the thread of entanglement begins to be untangled. And that's that on a broader scale, that's what we are supposed to be doing for everyone on this earth. That's our purpose. That's our journey. And the moment that you see that you cannot embrace everyone with loving kindness, the moment that you see or believe that you want vengeance, the moment that you embrace that, that's the moment you have left this journey. And if your expectation is to hear us talk about hatred towards people who have mistreated us and other people around the world, you're in the wrong place. We are not going to disparage anyone. We simply are talking about the energy of chaos that brings into existence the things that we are observing and experiencing right now. And if that is not what you are seeking, then you are actually wasting your time by being on this journey with us, or by being on this call. You're wasting your time, because we are not politicians. We are not revolutionaries. We're not African nationalists. We are spiritual men and women. We are spiritual beings whose ultimate goal is for the earth to be what it was created to be. And all of the things that happened to push us in this direction, no matter how brutal they were, whether it was skinning somebody's face while they were alive, or pouring kerosene on them and lighting them a fire while they were alive. Those things are evil, they're painful. But the catalyst that they are cannot be a catalyst for vengeance. The catalyst is to change the mindset that feels like it's okay to do something like that. That's the catalyst. That's the thing that moves us, the desire to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So again, if you are searching or expecting anything to come from us different than that, you're in the wrong place. So don't waste your time. Thank you. Ron.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, a good place to stop and reflect. Don't forget your meditations. And a lot has been said today. Any thoughts or questions you may have, please jot them down or send me a text. And that's where we'll begin, okay? Hope you had a great day. I hope,
Thank you, sir.
Gave you something to think about. And until tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.